Okay, so I'm gonna give this a second shot. I actually recorded this whole thing yesterday, and I almost found like a lot of the info that I shared on this topic or the dream that I had was more so pertaining to myself, and there were a lot of personal things in there in any case. So I just quickly wanted to go over a dream that I had 2 nights ago over the weekend that I thought was quite significant, and especially afterwards when I woke up at 1 in the morning, um, and I started writing everything down. And as I started writing it down, I actually had a lot of revelation about the dream. But if there's anything else that any of you might get out of this that I haven't mentioned, more than welcome to let me know. So the dream, like I mentioned, took place 2 nights ago, and it basically started off with me and two other people horseback riding at the bottom of a mountain. And I had this urge within me to take them up onto the mountain to go show them something. However, I at that point actually didn't know what it was that I was going to show them, but I instinctively knew that I had to take them up onto the mountain to show them something. And we got up to a certain point, and they, for some odd reason, they could only go up to a certain point on the mountain along with me. And I could only go up with the horse that I was riding up to a certain point, after which I had to get off and walk up the rest of the way. But the other two didn't walk up with me, they waited at the bottom of the mountain. Um, and just quickly want to mention as well, for what it's worth, throughout this whole dream, there were no discussions, no conversations, except for two sentences towards the end of the dream, which I'll explain a little bit later. In any case, and what was significant to me is as I was walking up this mountain, I had a look around um, at the landscape of the mountain itself because it looked so familiar. Yet, in some of my previous dreams, when I'm in situations like that, I can actually have a look around and then pinpoint where I am, what town it is, or what mountain range it is. In this case, I couldn't. I definitely knew that I had seen it before, but I couldn't pinpoint where it was. And then at the same time, I had a look at the soil, and it was actually quite interesting. I realize in hindsight now why it was so, or towards the end of the dream, it'll make sense why it was so important for me to notice it. But the soil on the mountain was red. So it was like a red, hard, clay type ground. It wasn't like a dark, rich brown type color that you would expect with lush plant life. However, the plants on the mountain was tropical, and it was strange because as I was climbing up this mountain, I realized, you know what, this is such a contrast. Like it doesn't fit. And in real life, outside of this dream, I'm actually one of those people that, and don't ask me why, I analyze people's gardens like that, or gardens in public places. And it frustrates me when people plant two different types of plants next to each other that would never be found in the same area. And especially if it's very significant. For instance, if you have tropical banana tree and right next to it you plant a thorn tree. It just does not fit. I would never put, I know it sounds crazy, but in any case, I'm going to get to a point with this. I'd never plant something like that in my own house. I like planting tropical things together, or if you're going to go for a cactus garden, plant all cactuses. Don't plant other things in between. Any case, so long story short, as I was walking up the mountain, noticed that the plants didn't fit with the soil type, and and I saw three UFOs, and they weren't your traditional round UFOs. They were specifically a V shape. Um, Not necessarily a triangle. If I remember correctly, it was definitely a V shape. And this is the closest photo that I've been able to get, like that type of photo of an actual V shape with the lights running around along the sides. Um, and this whole dream happened in the broad daylight. And I followed these three UFOs up the mountain, um, as though I was meant to follow them to see where they would lead me. And I went right up to the top. I mean, to the very top of the mountain. And when I when I popped out behind a bush, it was such an awkward moment. And I'm going to try and explain this whole thing to you, but it's It's all things that I perceived. So when I got to the top, I saw the three UFOs hanging right above the mountain, but almost like they were in a stationary mode. So in other words, they were just parked there. They were just hanging. And all of a sudden, I instinctively knew that they were decoys. They were phonies. They were not. I don't want to say they weren't real UFOs. I suppose they could have gone through as real UFOs, but they were remotely, what I perceived as they were remotely operated, or they were like a drone, something that was meant to represent the real thing. And they were just hanging or hovering above the mountain. And then when I looked towards the cliff side of the mountain, on the actual rocks, there were surveillance cameras mounted. And I actually found a picture that looked exactly like this. It looked like this. Normal home surveillance cameras. It was white ones, exactly like that. So not these round ones. It were these like real old school surveillance cameras, and they were exactly like on this photo. They were stuck to the rocks all over the top of the mountain. The weird thing, however, is immediately when I saw the cameras, I realized that they were actually living entities, or they were actually alive. And what I mean by that is, with your traditional cameras, as soon as it starts recording, it tapes all the footage to a tape, and you'd actually have to go back afterwards, go watch that tape to be able to assess what was recorded and then react from there. Whereas in this case, I immediately knew, I just knew that the surveillance cameras were alive. They were entities on their own. The lens in the front was like their eye, and they could determine on their own which way they would turn, whether they would zoom in or out, and then whatever actions needed to be taken. And it happened in real time, like it would have been if it was a person standing there observing you. And it was very significant to me. I really felt um, that the drones were decoys of the drones. The UFOs that I saw, the V-shaped ones, were decoys, and that the surveillance cameras were alive. And the feeling that I got, and this I got really strongly, um, is when I walked in on this scene, it felt as though, when people go out onto a stage to go do a performance, there's always a backstage section, and they've got normally have steps that lead up to the stage. And if you could picture yourself walking in on that backstage setup while everybody's already lined up to go out, they're halfway up the steps ready for this performance, and you walk in unannounced, that like shock or surprise factor, and in your case, like the awkward factor of catching them before they go out on stage, that is exactly the feeling that I got when I saw them. It was the feeling of catching them in the act, or catching them off guard before they go out on stage, before they um, go out on the show or this performance. Um, any case, and when I saw that, I ran down the mountain, wanted to tell the two people that I was riding horses with, wanted to tell them about what I had seen. And I'm going to skip over a few insignificant parts, but long story short, when I got back down the mountain, we took the horses to a glass house. The whole house was 100% glass, 100% see-through. There were no bricks. The roof, the sides, everything was glass. And in actual fact, it looked as though the inside was the same as the outside. So there were equally as many plants on the inside of the house as outside. Um, and again, the same as in my previous dream, all of a sudden when I got to the house, there were two Labradors or two dogs that weren't mine. I know that they weren't mine, but they ran up to me and I immediately felt like I had to take care of them. And I went to go put them in the house to at least keep them safe in the house. And at that moment, one of the people that were horse riding with me, I tried to, and I almost want to say telepathically, it almost feels like my whole dream was telepathic. There weren't conversations, it was feelings and emotions that I experienced, but I 100% knew um, like what was going on, and I fully understood the situation that I was in. Any case, and I tried to tell this one person about what I had seen up on the mountain. And he had this look on his face of utter disbelief, but not even like rolling your eyes. I mean, almost like telling me, like the feeling of telling me, you know what, this is just too outrageous. You've just gone crazy. And he actually said something to that extent to me. Um, and my response was, you know what, whether you believe me or whether you don't believe me, it's not going to change the reality thereof. It's not going to make the situation any more or any less real. And in my heart, I actually knew that I'm not even going to engage in a conversation or in a fight or argument or trying to convince this person otherwise, because it's as with, for instance, with your belief in Jesus as well. You make that choice, and it almost felt to me as though it wasn't the time, or there weren't enough time, or it wouldn't be of any value trying to prove that you are right and that person is wrong, because whether they're going to believe you or not going to believe you, it is going to play out like that. It is going to be that, um, and it's not going to change the facts. Any case, and along with that, so that was basically where the dream ended. It was just this going up into the mountain, this whole experience. And when the dream ended, I woke up, and it was the weirdest thing. So I haven't had a nightmare in a very long time. And even with this, it wasn't a frightening dream whatsoever. I wasn't frightened even when I saw everything. But when I woke up, I was petrified. I mean, I laid still in bed, couldn't move, and it was the strangest combination of, I almost want to say, of emotion versus what I just dreamt. It almost didn't line up. Um, and I immediately realized, oh, something that I left out. When in the dream, when I was about to go down the mountain, um, I realized that the reason why the plants didn't fit in with the soil type, and again, I just want to, I don't know if this is really coming across the way that I want to. If I think of red clay ground, I think of um, um, cactuses or plants that you would find in a desert type setup. But in my dream, it was lush green grass or lush green plants. And and in the dream, when I went down the hill, I realized that the reason it didn't make sense is because it was actually a confirmation that this whole thing was staged. It was a stage, it was a performance that was about to take place. And I remember trying to convey this to the other two people that were riding with me. And they actually didn't have the insight. They could not comprehend what I was trying to tell them, because when they looked at the mountain, there was a mountain. Yes, it had red soil, and yes, there were plants on the mountain, and that was about it. So it looked normal to them. However, um, I had enough discernment to be able to pick up on the small deviations on what would have been normal, to be able to say that, you know what, this isn't normal. Whoever put up the stage, whoever staged this, did a good job to a certain point, but they didn't really pay attention to the finer details. And again, like I mentioned, when I woke up, it reconfirmed something that the Lord spoke to me about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and it was specifically about a shepherd and a sheep. And there were actually, it was so much that I wrote about 6 pages worth of info. And the more I wrote, the more he revealed to me. And the main thing surrounding that was basically the fact that at this point, there's a lot of his sheep out there that when they look at themselves, they realize that they are a sheep. When they look at the people around them, and they see that they are sheep as well, they immediately assume that they are part of that flock. And when they look to the front, they see that there's a shepherd at the front or at the head of the flock. And all of a sudden they go, cheers, awesome, cool. We are in the right place. We are sheep. We are following other sheep, and all the sheep are following a shepherd. But the question is, are you in the right flock? And who is the shepherd leading that flock? Are you being led to slaughter, or are you actually in the flock that God called you into? And the only way, I can tell you now, the only way that you'll be able to discern that is when you have a personal relationship with God. Because even in your personal life, if you have a look at the people around you at the moment, everybody that you consider to be sheep of Christ, whether it be family members, friends, people at church, the church itself, how sure are you that they aren't also sheep, just sheep, but not necessarily your flock? And I think there's a lot of people out there that can't discern between the difference because they don't know the voice of their shepherd. And even Jesus said that my sheep follow my voice. And this dream again to me was just another confirmation that irrespective of what is coming, irrespective of the times that we are in, there will come a time with great deception and great confusion, and everybody's going to have a word for you. Everybody is going to tell you what is right. Christians everywhere is going to tell you where to go, what to do, who to follow. Um, and there will be great deception out there. And the main cause for that is because so many sheep don't know their shepherd's voice. Because if you know him, if you know his voice, you won't be able to be deceived. And again, the same as in the dream with the plants on the mountain and things like that, the deception doesn't always come as a big red tag saying, "Hi, I'm deception. Please follow me." It is 99.9% of the time found in the little things. It is just the twist of the word. It is just the twist of a situation. It is just subtle enough that it doesn't raise eyebrows, but it leads you astray. Um, and I really think, or I at least, I really feel that it's a vital time for each and every Christian at the moment to not seek words through somebody else, to not seek revelation through others. It is great if you use that as a supplement to what you already have, but your core needs to be a personal relationship with your Father. If you don't know how to hear God's voice, because I know that it sounds like a strange concept, tell God, you know what, you say in your word that those with ears will hear, and you say that your sheep will follow your voice. And Father, I'm afraid to be led astray. I pray that my ears be opened up. I pray that my heart be aligned with yours and that I'll be led by the Holy Spirit. I pray for discernment to be able to distinguish between right and wrong, and I pray for that to be increased more and more. And I pray for the Spirit, or the presence of the Holy Spirit, to increase in my life. Because at the moment, I also strongly believe that there's a lot of people really neglecting the role of the Holy Spirit at this very moment. He is the person that God left behind for us to guide us through the times that we're in. And to give us discernment and to help us with um, being corrected in our ways, and bringing things to our attention, and bringing things to our remembrance. So um, yeah, in the grand scheme, I actually just wanted to mention about the dream that I had, and whether that pertains, the cameras pertain to AI surveillance, the increase thereof, the fact that it is that we are on the brink, we are right at the edge of where all of that will come into full swing, and whether there will be, I don't know. I'm not proclaiming anything. I'm not trying to predict anything either. I'm simply sharing a dream that I had. Um, and whether there will be a staged UFO invasion, I'm not sure. I just know that in the times that we're in, even irrespective of whether there's another major disaster or event, which I strongly believe is definitely on its way, but even if nothing should happen, we are already in a time where deception is running wild. So if nothing else, at least take this from the video, that if you aren't currently, pray to God for an increase in discernment, and for insight and for understanding. because he also says in his word that my people die or perish for a lack of knowledge. Any case, so just thought I'd share that with you. If there's any of you that have any idea of why I keep seeing two dogs in my dream, please let me know. I have no idea. And otherwise, hope you all have a great day. Okay, cheers, bye.